hello, it's Irene here. Some of you are new to this world of mine. Some of you have been around here a very long time. So thank you for continuing to watch me, listen, learn. I wanted to share a story today. One of my students actually, and I'll name this person in a moment, but it ties into a common theme. There's actually a few themes. So I'm going to name them. One of those themes is this thought that to do this work, to do healing trauma work, to do nervous system rewiring work, regulation work, that we have to do this massive, big blowout fireworks kind of healing retreat, seminar, gathering, do all this stuff in a very short concentrated amount of time and just get it all done and just be done with it. So there's this thought that we have to do these big things to heal big traumas. Now there's another thing that I'm starting to see, and I want to name it because I want anyone here who is new, who is starting to see these other trends, I want to make sure you know this other trend that I'm seeing that I'm a little worried about, and that is people saying, I'm just not going to do anything. I've done too much. I've done too much healing work. I've visited too many therapists. I've done too many, you name the thing, right? Alternative, holistic, woo-woo, energy, allopathic, naturopathic, maybe even somatic work, and you are overloaded. Has anybody experienced this? So bloody overloaded that you are almost burnt out in terms of doing this healing work, this nervous system work. This is also common. Now, here's the thing. It comes down to making sure we are doing the right work at the right time and in little doses. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is this concept that many people, and I've heard it, and I was that person, I was this person too, saying, why am I so sick? I had a really good childhood, right? I had a really good childhood, I really did. And then when they start to come into what the nervous system actually is and how it can be thrown off, one starts to go, uh-oh, maybe my childhood wasn't that good. And so what do we do about that? One other thing I want to talk about is autoimmune, chronic illness conditions. So many of my students live with these things and they heal them. And this thought that I have this chronic condition, I'm like this forever, right? I am this versus I live with this and I'm trying to work with it. I've seen so many of my students move out of debilitating conditions that they were told were a lifetime sentence. So I'm going to talk briefly about that. And I also want to talk about the importance of anger. I know there's a lot of topics here. I'm just giving you some high points. Anger, why anger is so important and how anger is not a bad thing. Anger, healthy aggression is not violence. It's not abuse. It's not rage. It's our energy and birthright. Now, the reason why anger is an important one is anger connects to chronic illness. Typically, when one is living in a lot of deep, we call it shutdown, and we're stuck in survival, stress physiology, fight, flight, freeze, shutdown, there is often a lot of anger suppressed. And our culture, typically in the West, we do not have good practices, rites of passage, ways to move out healthy aggression in a good, healthy way. So I know I just named a lot of things, and the one student that comes in mind is my student Mitch Webb. I did an interview with him last year, one of our more popular talks. I love this interview for a lot of reasons, but it's because all the things I just mentioned, he fit the bill. And the cool thing is Mitch is doing amazing and he's still working on himself. He's still healing. If you're watching this, Mitch, hello. He's still doing his healing. He's studying with me at a higher level right now, a practitionership level. But when he came into this nervous system work through myself, he had already done so many things. He was a health coach. He was into food, exercise, detox, biohacking, doing more energetic spirit stuff, all these things. And yet, poor guy was struggling with so many autoimmune conditions, old shock traumas, in other words, accidents where the system was put through the ringer, some really, really severe concussions. And we talk about this in depth in our talk. So I really suggest everyone listen to this share of his experience healing via specifically my 12-week course, Smart Body, Smart Mind, which will be running again in about a month. And so he literally walks through everything that I just mentioned. I'm trying everything. I'm doing everything at my darndest, like just more. And what he realized is he had to do less, but he had to do the right things in the right order. In other words, he had to learn how to build up his nervous system capacity. And the way we do that is not through these big cathartic outbursts of emotion and just cathartic rage and anger and healing sessions where we're in it for hours and hours, retreats where we're in it and out for hours and hours. It was literally little tiny bits here and there, 5 minutes here, 2 minutes here, reading a paragraph here, integrating this stuff and applying it here, and here. And just like the stars in the sky, they're separate, but they also form constellations, and it makes up the sky, to use a metaphor. So what he found is that when he slowed things down, but slowed things down with a better map for how to heal his nervous system and why was he struggling so much with all these conditions? He had a ton of autoimmune conditions, gut problems, brain fog, the list is a very common list, coupled with shock traumas. Now, one of the things he didn't realize was he didn't have any overt abuse growing up. And by overt, I might call it physical, sexual. But there was this very constant, insidious element of toxic shame. And toxic shame is a whole other topic. I'm not going to get into it now. But he realized as he started to learn, whoa, I was treated quite poorly, verbally, by, I believe it was his dad. Just this chronic, like, you have to do better, be better, you're worthless, all these things, like achieving, go. And in many ways that drove what we would call his sympathetic energy to do sports and party and do all these things. And then of course that came at a cost. And so one of the things he said to me, I'm not sure if it was in our talk or in another conversation, he calls it death by a million cuts. Death by a million cuts. Some of us might know this as little t trauma. People distinguish between big T and little t, and I've done videos on this. But little t trauma can be just as big and just as intense and just as dysregulating as one big event trauma. And typically, I have found, and I put myself into this boat in some ways, we don't realize even when we had roof over our head, food in the fridge, warm, cozy bed at night. We went to soccer practice and ballet practice and skiing vacations, and we had a good school and all these things, and we had support. We will often think, but I had a good childhood. And the question, and we could say, yes, that was pretty darn good. Better than a lot of people in the world. And there's this weird thing with the nervous system where if a little person, a human, feels not listened to, not attuned to, they don't feel safe being themselves, expressing their vibrancy, their healthy life force energy, their unique, authentic self. Tell me if this is true to you, to many of you here. Do you know that your authentic self was squashed, not necessarily through massive physical and sexual abuse, but just through little, as Mitch called it, death by a million cuts, right? Did you just get smaller and smaller and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk until you didn't even know who you were. And so I share this story of Mitch because he kind of fits this almost textbook example, real life example of someone who kind of in their earlier years, and by early I mean 20s, 30s, had all these health problems, brain fog, autoimmune, pain, and it didn't make sense. But then when he started to learn via my curriculum and through my resources and through doing the practical work in a very slow, titrated way, all the pieces fell into place. It all made sense. Everything made sense. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't weak. He wasn't lazy. He just wasn't on, we could say, the path or the track of learning these very specific distinctions. So again, for those of you here who are new and this is super new to you and you're just exhausted by hearing everybody talking about you got to do this and this and this and oh, but don't do anything because you don't want to overwhelm your system, I'm here to say you do have to do something. We have to take some action, but the question is, how is the action matching where your nervous system physiology is, and is the action, the learning, the education, the practice actually feeding what your biology needs? And I've done this work for many years. I've been working with people since 1997, but in the trauma field specifically since 2008, online since 2012. I've seen thousands of people go through my courses and programs, namely the 21-day nervous system tune-up and SBSM. And so many stories are similar. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of stories on my many sites. You can find Mitch's there. Just pop in Mitch and my name, Irene Lyon. It will pop up. I can guarantee you it'll pop up on Google or YouTube. And check out these stories. They are different because we're all diverse in where we came from and how we've gone through this journey, this path. And yet they've all done the same curriculum. And they've all had the same discoveries around the importance of doing the work slowly, but doing the right work, realizing that maybe my childhood wasn't so great, and that's okay. It's not about blaming anyone, that emotions are essential, especially anger, and that we can all heal when we get into this biology and we have a blend of theory and practice. Theory and practice, we need both. Just like we have to work with our internal self and we have to bridge this internal with the external, and we have to bring them together. And that's exactly what I teach. So if you have any follow-up questions, if you're interested in learning more, the best place to go is my site. So much information there. It's just my name, irenelyon.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, send us an email to my support team, support@irenelyon.com. You can also post a comment under here and we will get to your questions. There's an FAQ page on my site. All these things are there for you to learn more. So that's all for today. Wanted to keep it short and concise. But again, these highlights of the importance of doing work that is going to come into your system and your system is going to recognize it. And this is my skill set. This is my mastery. This is my superpower. Has been creating these ways of learning online so that you can connect to self, your physiology, the information, and start to heal and start to gain capacity. And again, this is all in service of growing real nervous system regulation, just like my student Mitch did and many, many of his peers and many others out there.